In this video, I'll talk about common vulnerability scanning tools. The goal of vulnerability scanning is to identify and address weaknesses. Although unlike penetration testing, we aren't testing the behavior when we try to exploit those weaknesses. So therefore, vulnerability scanning is quite passive and shouldn't disrupt production systems. We need to have a database of known security misconfigurations, common attack vectors, known suspicious activity, and also known suspicious activity remnants within the database that is used by the vulnerability scanning tool. Now, this database, of course, needs to be updated as these things change over time. With a non-credentialed scan, we get similar results that would be achieved when a malicious user does scanning during reconnaissance. Whereas a credentialed scan has access to systems, and it really kind of mimics a compromised account within the company and what could be learned using that compromised account. Vulnerability scanning tools often have other abilities, such as the ability to correlate scan results with past activity to see what's changed. It could also have the ability to identify false positives that might even be configurable in some tools. We can also compare scan results with best practices and, in some cases, auto-remediate devices that don't adhere to best practices. We can also compare current scan results with previous scan results overall. This way, we can plan response plan priorities when it comes to incident response. There should always be ongoing scans since the threat landscape is changing all of the time. Some vulnerability scanning tools are command line based, others have a GUI like GFI LandGuard, which I'm using here. Regardless of the solution of your choice, they have a lot of commonalities in terms of their functionality. For instance, here, under Agents Management on the left, I can deploy agents to other computers for further scanning. I also have the option on the left of configuring a scanning profile. For instance, I'll click the Vulnerability Assessment Scanning Profile on the left. Then over on the right, maybe for high security vulnerabilities, I'll click the Edit This Profile link. So essentially, I can customize what I am scanning for within my vulnerability assessment. So here we've got hundreds upon hundreds of high security vulnerabilities that get checked. And I have the option, of course, of deselecting some if I don't want to check them. The more things you're checking for, the longer it takes. But then at the same time, the more thorough the scan results that you get in the end. Over on the left, I also have the option of scheduling scans. Scheduling scans is important so that we scan either a single computer or a bunch of computers on the network or the whole network so that we are keeping up to date with any newer threats or newer suspicious activity. We also have the option in many of these vulnerability scanning tools to store an application inventory. It will scan for software installed on devices so it can give you recommendations on whether or not something should be removed or configured differently. There's also software updating, which I've clicked on in the left-hand navigator here, where we can configure software updates that would be automatically downloaded or auto-deployed to machines that are missing them. All vulnerability scanners have some kind of an option for alerting. For example, sending an email message to administrators by connecting to a mail server. Vulnerability scanners always have a database that they use when they conduct vulnerability assessments, and that database must be kept up to date. But for example, if I were to go into program updates on the left in this tool, then I can see I've got options for the vulnerabilities database update, and I can see when it was last kept up to date. You'll find common vulnerability scanning tools from Qualsys. Nessus is a common open source vulnerability scanning tool that we'll take a look at in another Linux demonstration. There's OpenVAS, Nexpose, Nikto, Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, and the list goes on and on and on. In this video, we discussed common vulnerability scanning tools.